Hello everyone, this is Defense Politics Asia and this is the SITREP or summary for the day of 696 for the 20th of Jan, 696. Don't think anything wrong. No, it says 69, no 69. Then again today there's a lot of things happened over the past 24 hours. I split the report. The frontline changes report is on the main channel. Check it out over there. And let's start off with the Kupyansk Front, which is where the biggest news has happened. Russian forces have confirmed to have captured Krokhmalne. Information coming from the pro-Ukrainian side, Deep State UA reported that Krokhmalne has been captured, occupied by the enemy. And then the further report also, from Deep State UA 2 posts later also mentioned the Russian forces captured Krokhmalne and all the eastern outskirts of the village. And then it was corroborated by Ryba, the pro-Russian source, confirming that the Russian forces have liberated Krokhmalne and continue the advance on Avdiivka. So this is pretty significant. It comes after a very confusing, I would say, correction of the mapping. After I reduced the Russian claims and then increased the Ukrainian gray zone, suddenly the Russians just captured every half of it anyway, and making a lot of this correction yesterday looks like pointless. But anyway, it is what it is. We just update according to the best information that I can see. Maybe I missed some, maybe I didn't miss some. I do whatever I could, so this is the best I can do. And so this is actually very significant because given the speed of the advance of the Russians in this area shows that the Ukrainian forces got routed, which means that there's a possibility that the Ukrainian forces did not have enough men or equipment or ammunition or weaponry to deal with the Russian onslaught. And it is a major withdrawal. And if you look at the terrain around here, there isn't really much place for them to hide, to settle the next line of defense. The next line of defense is going to be around Pischane, as I mentioned in the frontline changes report. So you can check it out for more information. So otherwise, strategically speaking, we are looking at the Russians doing a pincer in the Kupyansk, in the attack at Sinkivka, Petropolivka, at Avdiivka, and Krokhmalne. The fighting at Berestove is not mentioned anymore today. Neither is the Olyanske or Yakhine region. This is not mentioned as well. So this is the situation. The Ukrainian forces counterattack at Avdiivka as well as Sinkivka. So this is definitely a reaction to the Russian advance. But so Sinkivka, I have no problems. I think the Ukrainian forces is going to have a pretty good position, as they have already done, because it is very close to Kupyansk, so they can reinforce very easily in this area here. But when it comes to much further positions, like around Krokhmalne, this is a bit far, and reinforcement is harder, resupply is harder. They need to travel along a long front line, very close to the front line, over just 5 kilometers away from the front line, all the way to Avdiivka and Krokhmalne. It means that they will be exposing themselves to Russian drones more for a longer period of time. So the reinforcement and resupply is going to be much harder in this area here. So so the Russian Defense Ministry have not acknowledged the capture yet. So we shall see whether we will see this in today's report, their noon report. And in the south of Berestove, there is geolocation of an airstrike, a Russian airstrike on Ukrainian position south of Berestove. This is quite significant, which means that the Russian advance and operation in this area is supported by the Air Force. And that will be pretty scary because the Air Force can land a much bigger explosion than what the artillery can. And so this is going to be pretty significant or pretty worrying for the Ukrainian forces. So that's all from the Kupyansk Front, the situation over here. And we move further south over at the Svatove Front. This is Svatove, and this is Temerkivka. According to the Ukrainian Defense Ministry, they reported Russian attack in the Temerkivka region. So we shall wait and see. This is pretty worrying as well for the Ukrainians, because if you look at the front line is up to here with possible fighting over at Berestove, and Temerkivka is just here. So this could be related. I'm not sure, or is this a Is this diversionary, forcing Ukrainians to decide if they should go north or south? I'm not sure. So this is a lot of very hard decisions the Ukrainian commanders will have to make in this region over here. The last time we see the fighting at Semerkivka is over the turn of the year on the 1st of January. So there is a 2 weeks, over 2 weeks of a rest and quietness around this front line. So we shall wait and see how this progress. Further south, over at Novovodyan, the Deep State UA, the pro-Ukrainian source, reported Russian activities around Novovodyan. So this is yet another potential front line that has seen fighting on and off in this area here. So it's yet another very far away place, very hard to reach for the Ukrainians. You can see the crossing is only in these areas here, and so this field crossing makes it really difficult to reach certain places where, like Novovodyan, there's no clear roads to come to this area here. So it is very difficult for the Ukrainians. Over at the Kreminna Front, this is Kreminna city. The Russian forces continue their Kreminna offensive. With the success over the Kupyansk Front, this front line start to flare up again, with Russian forces attacking Terny, Yampolivka, Dibrova, in the northern part of Serebryansky Forestry and at within the Serebryansky Forestry itself. Ukrainian forces counterattack at Terny as well as at Dibrova region. There is also reported fighting at the Khorivka region, so the Ukrainian forces are holding their lines here. However, there is also reported artillery strike on Ukrainian forces in the rear position as they are doing rotation northeast of Yampil. So this is a strategic situation over at Kreminna. There is no breakthrough just yet. The Ukrainian lines here are very established, so we shall continue to wait. I think Kupyansk and Svatove, particularly Kupyansk, is a lot more harder for the Ukrainians, and Serebryansky Forestry, the commander and the resources invested in this area seems to be a lot more substantial, so which is why they can do it. Over the Siversk Front, Russian forces continue to be reported to be fighting around Bilohorivka as well at Spurny. So instead of Verkhovno-Kayamsky, this time around fighting reported at Spurny. However, there is no more reports over at the Veselay region after the Russians reportedly have captured Veselay. What we do have is the Ukrainians counterattack over at Bilohorivka region. So they are attacking in this area here while the Russians establish control over Veselay. Russian attack at Spurny, of course, at Bilohorivka in the north. So we shall continue to wait and see how this goes, whether this counterattack is significant or not. It's reported by the Russian Defense Ministry, is reportedly repelled. We shall see how this goes. And moving into the Bakhmut Front. So this is Bakhmut city. At the Bakhmut Front, the Russian forces continue their attack over at Bodanivka, towards Ivanivsky, Klishevka, as well as Andrievka and Kudyumivka. So this is the strategic situation at Bakhmut. Front line remain largely unchanged. There is no much changes around this front line, as this is also yet another of this very established front line where the Ukrainians invested a lot to hold the front line in this area here. We do have a geolocation of Russian forces in this tree line in the north of Klishevka. This is a considered gray zone, but it's not sure what is this. There is some attack from the Russians, and then they got evacuated after they lost their battle around here. So we shall wait and see how this progress. I think I forgot to make the front line change around here. There might be some kind of front line change in this area here, but it's very minimal because it's still a gray zone. And that's all from the Bakhmut Front. At the Niu-York Front, this is New York City. At the New York Front, there is Ukrainian attack over at the Sumy region. So they are attacking towards Holivka, and this reported by the Russian Defense Ministry. I'm not sure where it's a vector of the attack. Is it through this suburb region, or is it through this ground, or further up north towards Marios? It's unclear. Reports coming from the Russian Defense Ministry. So we are now at Avdiivka. So the Avdiivka is where the most so-called exciting part other than the Kupyansk Front is, with the Russian forces continuing their Avdiivka offensive. This time round, we have no reports about fighting in the northern part. Mainly it's over in the north of Avdiivka, at the Kayamka region, south of Kayamka, over in the south of Avdiivka, and south of Giverny, over at Vodian, Pervomaisky, and Nevelsky. So this is the situation, the strategic situation around Avdiivka, and it looks like the focus is starting to go towards Avdiivka itself. This seems to be the focus, with another focus coming off the highway around Pervomaisky. They are moving this direction, and they are trying to close in towards Avdiivka. It looks like this northern part seems to be a bit more neglected. It could be a possibility that the Russians is finding it really hard to break through the Ukrainian lines over there, as there is a lot of Ukrainian heroics being reported and shown even on video, on drone footages, like the Bradleys going in and out of the front line. So the Ukrainians are doing pretty well in the north here, but it is within Avdiivka itself, around Avdiivka city, that is struggling with various frontline changes, like over in the southwestern part of Kayamka. The Russian forces have crossed the valley, and then also in the south, particularly in the south, as mentioned in the frontline changes report. You should go and watch it. The Russian forces have captured the restaurant, the Sahans, and they are moving towards the suburb, and this entire area is now a gray zone. Russian forces is also allegedly have captured the Skotovata Dacha region, which is now basically a fortification, a stronghold, and all the settlements, the Dacha in between this and the main road towards Avdiivka has all seemingly has been captured by the Russian forces. So we shall continue to monitor this situation. This is actually quite critical for the Ukrainians, and because of the speed of the advance, it shows that the Ukrainian forces may have been routed from the front line, and they need to the next line of defense, which I currently not too sure where they will hold the line, because it really depends on whether they have reinforcement coming to help out to mend the lines. Because if you depend on the troops that they are ejected from their defensive position right at the front line, I don't think they are quite happy to stay at the second line of defense, because it's pretty much the same thing, unless there's reinforcement to give them the assurance that they have the support they need to hold the line. If not, then the entire line will crumble, and they will just keep retreating and keep retreating. Like the British forces in Malaya during World War II, they didn't even engage the Japanese forces. They just keep retreating, and because of the lack of confidence. So the confidence to hold the line is very, very important. So we shall continue to monitor. As I mentioned in the frontline report, there is a lot of entrenchment all along these places. You can see in these satellite images, there is a lot of visible entrenchment around this area here. So it is not impossible for the Ukrainian forces to hold the positions around this forest, as they have been proven to be really capable to fight within the forest. Whether the mobilized troops, the territorial defense, have the same training to fight in the forest, I'm not sure. So, but in terms of historical record, the Ukrainians do really well in the forest regions. And so other than that, fighting at Vodian has been acknowledged by the Ukrainian Defense Ministry, and so this is the usual things around this area here. So moving away from the Avdiivka front, over at the Donetsk front, over the Georgievka region, this is Marinka, there is progress of the Russians in the north of Georgievka. They are creeping forward into the northern part of Georgievka, and fighting continues to be reported at Georgievka. So, and otherwise, I think there was a report. Oh, okay, there's no here. Is it here? Oh, I forgot to change the color. So there is also fighting reported at Marinka. I remember mapping this. So this is the situation over at the Marinka region. Further south, over at Novomihailivka, the fighting is still reported at Novomihailivka, with the vector of attack pretty unclear in the past 24 hours, probably in the north and the south. And Deep State UA also mentioned, the pro-Ukrainian source reported that there is a small group of Russian forces pushing towards this highway between Konstantinivka and Vodian. So the Russian forces are pushing in this direction. So we shall continue to monitor and see how this progress over in the Donetsk Front, in the Novomihailivka sector. Otherwise, there is fighting reported at Novodonetsky, according to the Deep State UA. There is some fighting probably towards the northwest of Novodonetsky, but this attack seems to have failed. and we move on over to the Zaporizhzhia Front. So this is Zaporizhzhia city, and this is the Zaporizhzhia Front. Over at the Velika Novoselka sector, there is fighting reported over at Uruzhaine. This is a continuation of the fighting being reported yesterday. There was reported on the 18th. The report of the fighting was on the 18th. So the 20th, there was a report again, geolocation showing Russian forces is pushing on the eastern outskirts of Uruzhaine. Ukrainian forces counterattack over at Rivnopil. This is probably to draw the Russian forces away from the western part of Staromayoske, where previously the Russians were pushing towards Staromayoske. So that's the strategic situation over at the Velika Novoselka sector. And we move on. There is geolocation of airstrike on Ukrainian forces at Melanivka. So this is just something to take note of. Not sure if this will become offensive for the Russians. We shall wait and see. Over at the Orikhiv sector, this is Orikhiv. At the Orikhiv sector, the Russian forces are attacking in the area of Nesteryanka, Robotine, west of Verbove and Verbove. And this is the one that was interesting, I would say, because these are the usual ones. The Russians always pushing at Verbove, west of Verbove and Robotine. However, Nesteryanka is something new. We haven't seen any fighting being reported here since November, early November. So the fighting in the Nesteryanka region is reported by the Russian Defense Ministry. So I'm not sure if this will continue to develop into an attack into Novoandrievka and cutting the highway and causing a logistical nightmare for the Ukrainians. Not sure just yet. Of course, these are just big arrows. We do not know whether this kind of thing will happen. I'm just saying that if they are trying to push in this area, the natural reaction, the natural direction that they're going towards is Novoandrievka and to cut the highway. This is the strategic situation. If they are going into this direction, if they commit into this offensive. And that's all from Zaporizhzhia Front. And we move into the Kherson Front. The Kherson Front. This is the most cursed front because this is the most pointless front line, but people are dying nevertheless. And Ukrainian forces continue to be fighting within Krinky, as we can see in the 19th of January geolocation by the military summary. TOS-1A, the thermobaric missiles, has been fired at Ukrainian forces at Krinky. This is yet another sign that Ukrainian forces is still at Krinky. Geolocation proven it. And there's also further geolocation of Ukrainian forces getting hit by FPV drones around the Krinky region. So this just shows that Ukrainian forces are still at Krinky. So for those that are still unrepentant, you need to wash your brain. And Russian forces reportedly, according to the Ukrainian Defense Ministry and Deep State UA, continues to report that the Russian forces are attacking Krinky. They are still attacking Krinky with assault. We're not sure about the details. Ryba yesterday mentioned a lot of information, but not very meaningful because we don't see the frontline change. So otherwise, we have further geolocation of Ukrainian artillery, Paladin, M109 self-propelled artillery got hit by a Lancet. This is yet another of this. I totally lost count how many artillery systems have been hit around the Tiahinka region. This is Tiahinka, and around this area here, there's plenty of artillery system getting hit by Lancet drones. The Russians are just having a turkey shoot in this area here. And there is this interesting geolocation far away from the Krinky region. There is this Humvee towing an artillery gun getting hit just off Zorivka. And this is very far away, but this signifies something. The Ukrainians are still trying to bring artillery systems into the front line around where they need the artillery system to be, either to hold the front the beachhead around the Oleshki Stepney region or the Krinky region, and they are still continuing to send in artillery system to support the operations over there. But another thing that is significant about this geolocation is that the Russian forces are also hunting artillery systems and Ukrainian equipments over on this western part of this river, the Inhulets River. So this is the Inhulets River, if I'm not wrong. Yeah, it's the Inhulets River. So that means the Russians are also monitoring this space on the western part rather than just around the Krinky side. So this is another bad news, because there is many forms of ways for the drones to be used, and when they detect something, they start to call in the Lancets. The Lancet fly really fast, so yeah, no, the Lancets are now like X-wing, so they are a very different version from the previous one that was a biplane design. This X-wing design is much faster, and they will be able to hit the Ukrainian vehicles at high speed from a distance away, so they can be caught almost like an artillery system. So quite yeah, worrying for the Ukrainians. So this is the summary for the day of 696 for the 20th of January. Do press the like button, subscribe. The war channel is still pretty small, and which is why I believe the reach is also much more smaller. So you guys need to subscribe to support the channel for this channel to continue to have sufficient views, thus sufficient revenue to continue this reporting. So thank you for watching. Do press the like button. I'll see you guys in the next update.